Good morning. Welcome to Asher and Torah Anytime. We are up to Perek Chav, and this is actually a very interesting Perek because there is a historical context that's being revealed over here, which means up until now it was all very metaphorical, and here there's actually some hard data, hard facts of what we're talking about. And there's also a very interesting description. We'll see it in a second. So the pasuk starts Bishnas bo Sarton. So it was in the year that Tarton, which is the general of Ashur, which is actually a historical figure that we know who he was. He came to Ashdoido b'shloach oisei Sargon. Now Sargon is Sancheriv, Melech Ashur vayilochem ba'Ashdod vayilkada. So he's battling Ashdod vayilkada. It was at that time that Hashem spoke to Yeshayahu to tell him, Lech ipitachto hasak me'al mosnecha. I need you to unbelt your loincloth, or hasak me'al mosnecha. Basically, he's telling him to walk around naked. V'na'alcha tachloit, and your shoes you should remove me'al raglecha. Remove the sackcloth from your waist, remove the shoes from your feet. Vayas kein holoch orom vayochef. And Yeshaya did that he walked around with these ripped, torn clothing without shoes. So there's a machlokes in all of the Rishonim over here. Is this actually an event that happened? And there's some of the Rishonim that hold that this is actually what happened. Yeshayahu walked naked and barefoot in order to personify to be like a live model of what was going to happen. Others hold that it was a dream. Like the Radak says, Adavar hazeh eilu forsher kimashmo shetzivo eilas hanovi sheilech orem v'yochef chalila. Same thing as where it says there, that it's either it's metaphorical or it's a vision that he had, but it seems like according to Rashi and definitely according to Barbanel, according to the other Rishonim and the other Mefarshim, it seems like they understood it very literally. So it's very interesting because it's like this is one of the Navi things you never know, right? If somebody would ask you, which Navi walked through a land naked without shoes? I don't know. But at least according to a large bulk of the Rishonim, it literally means that. Vayomer Hashem. So Hashem said, Kasher halach avdi Yeshayahu adam v'Yaakov. Hashem says, just like my servant Yeshayahu is walking around naked and barefoot, Sholosh Shonim, Oisu Morphos al Mitzrayim al Kush. This is an example of what's going to be happening to Mitzrayim and to Kush through Sancheriv that's going to come in 3 years. So he's walking around for 3 years in order to emulate, I don't know if the word is emulate, but in order to model what's going to happen, in order to... He was like a yachid, he was like an individual that was going to personify what's going to happen to the nation. I guess this is why people didn't want to become a Navi. I think a Navi had a really difficult job, that he was an individual who was, entire nations were being modeled after his behavior. Even, if you think about it, even if this was a vision that he had, even if according to the Radak, that it was a vision or a dream that he had, it's also pretty extreme that, that Yeshaya is describing that he had this vision that he was walking around naked and barefoot for 3 years. It's not a trip that we would want to go on. Kein Yinag Melech Ashur es Shevim Mitzrayim. So too, just like Yeshayahu is walking around naked for 3 years, this is a simon, a sign, as Yinag Melech Ashur es Shevim Mitzrayim, ve'ez Golus Kush, ne'orim uskenim, orim v'yochov, v'chashufei sheis. Yep, they're going to be walking around. This is how they're going to be exiled. That Melech Ashur is going to bring all of the prisoners, the captives of Egypt, and the exiles of Cush. They're going to be walking around barefoot, naked. Chashuv Hashes. Chashuv Hashes means that they're not going to be wearing pants. Mit the hoizen herop. Ervas Mitzrayim. This is going to be the disgrace of Mitzrayim, which means Ervas is Ervas Mitzrayim. It's going to be revealed, the Ervas Mitzrayim, which is the greatest humiliation you can go through. So again, we're always telling the oppressors, all of the prophecies of Yeshayahu is telling oppressors the end of oppression. This is what the end of oppression looks like. Or if you want to go on yesterday's idea of Mitzrayim being your problems and your issues and your escape routes, we're telling you this is what the end of running away from yourself looks like. You end up walking naked, barefoot, humiliated. V'chatu v'voishu mikush mabotom. They're going to be broken, they're going to be ashamed from all those that are staring at them. U'mimitzrayim tefartom. And for all of those that looked up like, wow, psh. This almost sounds like, the emperor's clothing. You know the story of the emperor's clothing, where the emperor, the emperor's, when I was a kid, this was like the most famous story with the emperor's new clothing. It was this emperor, and there was these two tailors that came, and they came to the emperor with like an invisible cloth. And they told the emperor, two people came into the emperor, and they were holding this quote-unquote invisible cloth. They made believe they were holding clothing, and they told the emperor like, wow, we brought this cloth that only psh. And everybody who was standing around the emperor, they thought to themselves, I don't see anything. But they didn't want to be the Meshugoyim to say there's nothing there. So they played along that like, wow. Now the emperor himself was like, he didn't want to be the Meshuggah who says he doesn't want to see anything. So he also went along with the game that if everybody sees it, probably he sees it too. So then they went and they sewed for him these gorgeous, gorgeous robes for the king from this invisible cloth, and obviously they got a hefty price in real money. And these charlatans, scam artists, took off with the money. Bottom line is that this king was now put on this robe, and all of the servants, everybody in his own mind is saying, I don't see anything here, but I don't want to be there's probably something wrong with me if I don't see it. So they dressed the king in the robes, and then they made a huge parade, and the emperor is marching down the main road, stark naked. But everybody's like, psh, wow, psh, everybody's like, wow, this is amazing, because nobody wants to be the fool. Until there was one kid who didn't chap yet that you're supposed to play along with what everybody else says. And he said, but the emperor is naked. But the emperor has no clothing. And that's when the bubble popped, and he found himself standing naked in public. That's the story of the emperor's new clothing, but that's really what's happening over here, is that when Yeshayahu Hanavi is walking around naked, he's like exposing to Cush and to Mitzrayim that your whole game that you've been playing is going to end up that you're going to be in public with no clothing. The end of the game of Cush and Mitzrayim is that you end up, when the bubble pops, you find out that you've been naked in public. V'chatu voishu mikush mabotom minu Mitzrayim tifartom. V'omar Yoshe ve'iyazeh, and the Yidden who are going to be living al Gvul Hayam in the land of Israel, B'yayim they're going to say on that day when they're going to see Mitzrayim and Cush fall, they're going to say, Hine koi mabotenu. This was like our view, Asher Nasnu Sham, that we ran away from there. We thought that these are the people we thought were going to run to, LeEzra. We thought that we're going to run to Cush and Mitzrayim to help us. Now we see that they can't even help themselves, and how did we want to run to them? So that's basically how he's describing the end of Cush and Ashur, the end of all of our vices, and all of our, we spoke about yesterday, our approvals, and all of the things that we need. One day we're going to wake up and say, I wanted to run to get approval from other people. One day when it gets revealed that all the people who you ran to get approval from are trying to get approval from you, and that's when the emperor has no clothing. When you chap that, you mean I was running to him or to them in order for me to get approval? He was running to me to get approval. Hello?